All right, I'd like to call to order our work session for June 26, 2018. We have 4 items on the agenda. An update from NCDOT, a review of some proposed ordinances that we will tackle tonight. We have to do it today so we get a glance at them before they come before us as a set of ordinances. We have to do that by statute. A Park and Culture and Rec work plan update, and then we're going to begin the conversation about how we fill our boards and commissions. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So the ayes have it. Just to note, we do have 4 members present, so we do have a quorum. And you can indicate that Commissioner Burns is out sick. So Sean Epperson, come on down. Anytime we get a chance to have DOT as a contestant, we love it. So,
cool.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Yep, you too. Thank you for having me. Here to give a brief update on U5769, which is the widening of NC16 from Ray Road all the way down to Waxhaw Parkway. Okay, so like I said, the scope is to widen NC16 from Ray Road to Waxhaw Parkway. We're looking at going to right-of-way in 2020 with construction beginning in 2023. So when we were beginning this, we decided to look at 2 different alternatives from a traffic standpoint. Alternative 1 was conventional widening, your standard full movement intersections, and then Superstreet widening, which is your intersections where you have limited movements and you redirect your left turns to U-turn bulbs that are down the road a little ways.
Now, I believe you're doing the surveying right now, right? You're generating excitement, let's just put it that way.
I think so.
Yeah.
Travis, do you know, we haven't gotten the survey now, so it probably is going on.
It's probably going on right now.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what you see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I figured I'd start with some of the Superstreet benefits and why we even look at that option. In a standard conventional intersection, you have 32 conflict points, all the different places where a crash is potentially to happen. And then a Superstreet intersection, including the U-turn bulbs, there's 14 conflict points. Crash reduction, FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, did a study back in 2016. You're looking at crash reduction for all crashes between 44%, 98%, 88, 71, just depending on where you're at in the different corridors. And then injury crashes anywhere from 41%. I'm honestly not sure how you get over 100% reduction, but 88% and 63%. So again, it just kind of shows some of the safety benefits of the Superstreet type intersections. Specific to North Carolina, we've done a lot of studies. We've implemented a lot of Superstreets across the state. We're looking at around a 60% reduction in fatal and injury crashes, and then a 42% reduction in total crashes is what we typically see across the state. From a signal operation benefit, a standard full movement intersection, you've got to serve your left turn movements and all your through movements. So you end up with 8 different phases. So that's 8 different phases that you've got to go through green and yellow and red. With a Superstreet.
Could you just pause and we have 3 board members here who've been on the board for 6 months.
Okay.
They may not know what a Superstreet is. Could you just make sure we're all on the same page as to what a Superstreet is?
Okay. So this slide was for pedestrian movements, but it kind of shows what a Superstreet is. So on your side streets, all traffic is redirected to the right, and had you wanted to go straight across or left, you'd come down to the U-turn, come back. If you'd wanted to go straight, you make a right. If you had wanted to turn left, then you'd go straight through the intersection. The main line is still allowed to turn left, go straight, or turn right. So from the main line standpoint, all the same movements are allowed. It's just the side streets, all the traffic's redirected to the right, and then to a U-turn point.
Thank you.
No problem. So part of the benefit of this is in this design, you have a 2-phase signal. So at this intersection, either the through movement's going, or these lefts and these rights. So it goes back and forth between the 2 different phases quickly. So you're able to get more green time to the main line, but also to any movement that's going on. Same at the U-turn bulb. When these U-turns need to happen, you stop this direction of 16 and let the U-turns go. So again, it's a 2-phase signal. So it's either 16 or the U-turns. 16 U-turns. So because you have only a 2-phase signal, you can go for shorter cycle lengths. Typically at a full movement intersection, a lot of times we're looking at 150 to 180 seconds So that means if you get there at the wrong time on red, you may be waiting, a couple minutes before you get a green. On our super streets, a lot of times, they're still showing 120 here, but a lot of times we can get that cycle length down to like 60 or 80 seconds. So worst case, you show up at the wrong time, you're waiting 30, 40, 50 seconds usually at the most before you get to go green. We can have different cycle lengths for each direction. So example here, let's say this is 16 southbound. You stop 16 southbound to let these lefts and these rights go, but northbound can keep going. They operate independently of each other. So in the morning, if your northbound movement's heavy, you'd have a longer cycle length here to accommodate those volumes, while having a much shorter cycle length down here where you have less volumes. High capacity, side street volumes can exceed over 20,000 a lot of times, and they still work. Like I said, because they operate independently of each other, you can have one-way progression. So because this left, this left, and this left only have to stop, say southbound, you can set it up to where when you get a green here, you get a green here, 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 and here, independently of when your northbound progression is coming through. So that allows you to operate each side of the roadway as a one-way pair. So you're only looking at one-way progression. You can set it up for any speed. One of the complaints we get about Superstreets is people think that it's a high-speed roadway. But if you set up that progression to where if you're going the speed limit, you're going to get to the next signal on green. If you go 5, 10, 15 over the speed limit, when you get to that next signal, it's going to be red. It doesn't do you any good to go higher speed. Okay, so at a standard full movement intersection, you'd have pedestrians cross all 4 legs. Superstreet, we have them cross to the middle and across, and then over the other side. But with the U-turn points, you can also cross pedestrians as well. So anytime you have a Superstreet intersection, you are automatically getting 3 different locations across pedestrians. So your pedestrians down, say shopping center down here, don't have to walk all the way down, cross, back to their subdivision or home over here. They can just walk straight across. And the same thing on the other side. So this shows that at the U-turn bulbs, you can do them straight across, kind of diagonal through the middle, just depending on where your U-turn bulbs are at. If the U-turn bulbs are right next to each other, you'll end up with this. If your U-turn bulbs are a little ways apart, say you had a building or some kind of business here that you wanted to leave their driveway here, you might separate these a little bit, but you can still get the pedestrians across the roadway. Some Superstreet examples. One of the first ones in North Carolina was US 17 in Leland. NC 55 in Holly Point. I like this one just because when it was put in, these businesses existed, but even with the Superstreet, there's more development coming. Because one of the other complaints we get is if you do Superstreet, development's not going to come. I don't think they would be building that if they felt that was the case in this situation. 2427 in Locust, it's one of the closest examples, at least of a signalized Superstreet. There's a Walmart shopping center and then there's a subdivision and golf course back here. It's just one intersection, but it's still a Superstreet intersection. So what's going to be the closest one, and I really can't wait for this one to get opened up, is US 74 through Indian Trail. That whole corridor from Indian Trail Fairview Road down to Wesley Chapel South Sardis Church Road is being converted to a Superstreet configuration today. Now, if you're aware of traffic in the area, it's bad. When it's done, it should be flowing a lot better. We've already converted a couple of the intersections to temporary Superstreet patterns, and actually have already seen somewhat of a benefit from it.
That's in addition to the bypass?
That's in addition to the bypass. Even with the bypass, the forecast volumes on that section of 74 are going to grow exponentially over the next 20, 30 years. So these are just some drawings of what the Superstreet down there is going to look like, because I can't show you what it looks like today because it's not built. When I did this presentation, we hadn't converted a couple of the intersections, so I guess I could have went out and took some pictures, but I didn't get a chance to do that. By the end of the year, though, it should be converted completely over, and I'm really waiting for that, just so I can, anybody that I'm giving this presentation to, so you can just drive 15 minutes, maybe like 30 minutes up the road, but, and take a look at what it works, or what it looks like and how it works up there. So, back to U5769, 2040, the no build. If we don't build anything, we're looking at level service Fs. So, we got some, some level services are better than that. We've got a lot of Es and Fs. I don't think anybody doubts that if we don't do anything, 16 is not going to be good in 2040. It's not good today. But this just highlights that it's going to get worse. So conventional intersections, Bonds Grove Church is going to be a C. What we're shooting for is a level of service D or better. So I want to throw out that while Bonds Grove Church is working in a conventional pattern at level of service C, that is without any development in the area and without a fourth leg being added to the intersection. We don't know exactly what it's going to happen, but it's going to be worse than a C once that area develops and they add a fourth leg to that intersection. Gray Byram's the same thing. It's a B, but once you throw in that fourth leg and additional development, it's going to be worse. Kensington Drive is going to be a D in conventional, which again, D is at minimum what we're shooting for. And then it gets better from there. Once you pass Kensington, Cuthbertson area, the traffic volumes do lighten up. So in the Superstreet pattern, again, Bonds Grove is going to be a B, which is better than a C, but Gray Byram looking at being a B. And then the Kensington Cuthbertson intersections are looking to be a C. This is the same information I just went over. It's kind of in a table or a diagram format. So the conventional is what it would look like.
A question, because you're rolling through a whole bunch of
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where.
Sorry.
So let's take a couple. Cuthbertson, Kensington.
Okay.
Superstreet and.
Okay, so that was going to be what I was going to get to next.
Okay.
So our recommendation for the corridor from Ray Road down to Cuthbertson, Kensington is a Superstreet. The reason being is although as a conventional intersection it's operating at level service C in many cases, our concern, or in the case of Cuthbertson, D, our concern is that with the way this area is growing, the way 16 has a lot of potential for a lot of development, there's a lot of vacant land out there. If we go with intersections that are a C or a D and the place builds out, we're going to end up with failing intersections. By going to a Superstreet configuration through there, we're looking at level services of C or B, which gives a lot of room for a lot of additional growth, a lot of additional development, a lot of additional traffic volumes, and still staying at a level of service D. And then you've got the safety benefits that I talked about previously too. So between the safety benefits and the additional capacity for additional development, additional traffic volumes, between Ray Road and Cuthbertson, Kensington, we're recommending a Superstreet. South of Cuthbertson and Kensington, we're looking at level services B and C with conventional intersections. So there's already room for those intersections to see additional capacity, additional volumes, and not fail. Coupled with, once you get south of Cuthbertson, Kensington, it becomes a real challenge to implement a Superstreet because of all the developments already there. There's no room for those U-turn bulbs. So while the safety benefits would still be there, the capacity benefits aren't there, and then the challenges of trying to build it and not take out a bunch of businesses didn't necessarily make it worth it in our mind. So
Kensington, Cuthbertson. At some times of the day, Cuthbertson's busier than 16. So which is the Superstreet? Because I know when we did the numbers, it was equal in terms of it's a pathway now down to 521 in that corridor.
Yeah.
So how does something like that work, given its close proximity to Sunset, which was up there in the lows, as well as Great Byram and the hospital?
Okay, so originally we were looking at, I'm trying to find Cuthbertson. Okay, so Sunset would have its U-turn, would have a U-turn point there. Kensington, we'd have a U-turn point there and there. In this configuration, we wouldn't let traffic go straight through between Cuthbertson and Kensington. When we met with staff several weeks ago, and along with folks from Union County, they expressed concern that there's not many east-west movements in this area. So you've got Ray Road, Newtown, and then really Kensington, Cuthbertson. Those are the only ones. We are already recommending a Michigan left style Superstreet at Ray Road. So what that does is in, like I said, in a standard Superstreet, you can't go straight across the side streets. In a Michigan left style Superstreet, you can go straight across on the side streets. So taking that into account, we re-looked at so this is Newtown, but we'll go to Cuthbertson, Kensington. So we looked at the Michigan left style Superstreet. So instead of forcing all the straight through traffic on the side streets to have to.
Michigan left is just overall the same thing.
Yeah, it's a different style of Superstreet. So instead of redirecting the through movements on the side streets to the U-turn points, you let the side street traffic go straight across. And I really should have brought an example of that. We'll just back up, I can show you. Okay, so instead of redirecting these through movements to the right and U-turn, you let this through movement go. You let the through movements on 16 go. What you don't do is let the lefts off of 16 go. So all through movements would be allowed. All left turn movements would be to redirect to the U-turn bulbs. Correct. So taking that into account, the concern that some of the folks had about there not being many east-west movements, we looked at Newtown Road. The other concern with Newtown Road is the forecast wasn't showing a large amount of volume on Newtown, so we increased those volumes and then looked at the Michigan left. Michigan left works better on Newtown. It's probably what we're going to go with. We looked at the same thing at Kensington and Cuthbertson, looked at the Michigan left option. So in the standard Superstreet configuration, we're looking at all C's and D's. In the Michigan left configuration, again, we're looking at C's and D's with actually one B. So some movements went from a C to a D. Some movements went from a C to a B. So what that tells us is either configuration can work. There's not one that's a clear-cut difference as far as better than the other one. So that's one of the things we want to find out is which option is preferred. Do y'all, if we go with the Superstreet configuration, do we go with the standard configuration and redirect the side street through movements, or go with the Michigan left Superstreet where we let the through movements go on Kensington and Cuthbertson?
And how far in advance does that decision have to be or input needed?
According to our folks doing the design, they need to know as soon as possible. You let me know. I don't want to. I don't want to wait on it months. But if you need a month, or you need 2 months to talk, and we need to meet again and look at things, let us know. We're here to work.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, no, and that's fine, yeah. We'll work with you on that one. So, travel time along the corridor, in the conventional versus Superstreet, you can see it's a little bit better. It's not tremendously different. I say that, we're looking at almost 2 minutes. 13.2 minutes versus 11.2 minutes. So, depending on what you're talking about, but and then delay. We got increases or decreases in delay in almost every intersection until you get south of Kensington, Cuthbertson. And that's why we're not recommending the Superstreet there.
Are you doing the same design with the other municipalities all the way up?
Yep.
So how does their decisions impact?
It doesn't. We can treat everything differently. We've already met with Weddington. And then we're meeting with Waxhaw, meeting with Marvin about 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks.
Have they made their decisions?
Weddington has, Marvin has not.
What did Wedding?
So
Weddington
we were already recommending a Michigan left style Superstreet at Ray Road, which is technically going to be the rerouted NC 84, so it made sense. You want the through movements to go. What they asked for was both the U-turn bulbs were going to be on Ray Road. They were concerned about some of the existing development on 16, wanting traffic on some of the existing development on 16 to go south on 16 was going to have to turn right, go up to Ray Road, make a right, make a U-turn, come across the intersection, make a U-turn to go back south. Correct. So we are now going to put U-turn bulbs on 16 as well. So now if you're on 16 wanting to go south and there's a median in front of your home, your subdivision neighborhood, you can turn right. Instead of making a right U-turn, right, you can go all the way up, make a U-turn, and come back down. So that's what we're doing for that. Like I said, Marvin, we haven't met with them yet. My thoughts are just looking at some of these differences between Michigan and standard. If the volumes do grow significantly over what the forecast is showing, the Michigan left is the much better option. Even if they don't grow, they work about evenly. I'm going to hedge my bet and just go with the Michigan there. But again, we really don't have many east-west connections through here, so it kind of makes sense to keep that through movement traffic moving as much as possible.
And part of the challenge between Ray Road and Newtown, our left-hand turns do cut through, like on Ennis and a few others. How are those being addressed? Because that probably backs up traffic back to Ray Road more than anything does.
Okay, so Ennis. Okay, so we are recommending a left turn onto Ennis, and then they would have a U-turn pole. Correct, yeah, but yeah, anywhere we will allow a left or a U-turn, there's going to be a lane dedicated for that. Yeah. So you'd still be able to turn left onto Ennis. You would just do it from a left turn lane versus the through lane, so you won't hold up traffic.
So we got to do our work with Dennis and Matt and come up with what our suggested.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I think we've already gotten what y'all's preferences are for bike ped, so we're good to go there. We just need to know Kensington, Cuthbertson.
Does our decision impact any of the cost to the town of Waxhaw?
No. I don't know if there's really any significant design or construction cost differences between the two of them, but it doesn't matter.
Questions from the board? Thanks for coming out.
Yep. Thank you.
I appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Next item up, proposed amendments to the Waxhaw Code of Ordinances. This is information for decision-making this evening. Presenter is Kurt White, and you have 3 ordinances that you would like to go through.
Okay, hello. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Just going to go through the 3 different ordinance amendments that we have. They're all related in some shape or fashion to parking, and they're essentially a continuation of the process we started earlier in the year, where we were looking at the town code of ordinances and finding some different opportunities for improvement on a variety of issues. The first of them being the noise ordinance that we did back in, I guess that was March. So just wanted to review here that the Code Enforcement Division right now in the town, which is really the bulk of the work is being done by the Code Inspector Larry Pantori, is out there to promote and preserve the health and safety, welfare of the citizens of the town, and to protect property values. So that's kind of the context that all this is happening in. Just wanted to put that up there so we know why we're doing what we're doing. So as I mentioned, we started looking at a kind of a broad ordinance revision for the town code late in 2017. We were calling it Community Preservation Ordinance or Code Enforcement Ordinance, and it was really focused on quality of life related items. So this is of course distinct from the zoning and the broader issues in the UDO. So the decision was made to break out and prioritize some of the items that we listed in that initial ordinance package, so that we could kind of analyze each one and instead of having to sort through what really was a large volume of information. So the first thing we did in March was the noise ordinance, and that was improved to add the decibel reading that define a violation in terms of how many decibels it was, so a more quantitative approach to using that ordinance. And that has really been helpful so far, especially in the downtown area, and how those businesses downtown interface with the residential that's nearby. These ordinances today, as I said, are really part of a parking strategy. Each one of them was kind of triggered in some way or another by issues that we're facing downtown. We know that downtown is very successful, and therefore we have a challenge with parking at a lot of different times of the week, especially on the weekends. And so we started looking at, beyond adding new shared parking arrangements, which we've done, beyond adding additional space in our surface lots, which we've done also this past year, what other little things can we do here and there to improve both the availability of and the potential safety of some of these parking areas. So today we're going to talk about public sidewalk obstructions, parking near intersections, and commercial vehicles. At a later date, we'll continue this discussion with some additional items that are still out there that were part of that original ordinance discussion earlier this year. So the first one, hopefully these will be fairly straightforward, but if of course we can definitely discuss them if there's any if we're not clear what we're attempting to do here. But what you see here is this is the existing Chapter 72 of the Town Code of Ordinances, and the only new piece here that's being proposed is what's in red. So it would, no person shall obstruct a street, alley, public road, public sidewalk, or public square within the corporate limits of the town. Again, nothing else is being changed here. This is how it currently is. The town manager can authorize temporary road closures, and there's other types of public purposes that obstructions may, during which obstructions may be okay. But this is a public sidewalk, and here's just an example. So here's kind of what we're talking about. This happens fairly frequently. It doesn't just happen downtown by any means. Can happen throughout the town, but there's what that looks like.
Is that a traffic violation?
Is that
Ticket issued by the police?
Yeah, this one would be handled with the Waxhaw police, yes.
What's the penalty?
The penalty on this one, it's later in the presentation. I believe we put this one at $25. So that's the first one. The second one is parking within 15 feet of an intersection. Again, the new piece here is what's in red. So currently, the ordinance, we have parking rules, and it lists a variety of different. You can't park in front of a fire hydrant, for example. That's what 1 through 6 deals with here in Section A. A lot of things, familiar kind of parking and traffic rules. But number 7 is parking within 15 feet of an intersection of a public street, and unless a shorter distance is marked. So unless there's a clearly indicated place for you to park, which would have been evaluated in terms of is that a safe and appropriate place. But in general, 15 feet from an intersection. This is downtown, looking north on North Providence Street here at Howie Mine Road, and what we were coming across was people would park. It looks like you can park right here in this grassy area. You can, in the sense that it's not prohibited because it's the public street, and there was no indication that you couldn't. So you can park along the public streets, and people would pull up right to that stop sign, and it was posing a safety issue. People would have a blind spot as they were trying to pull out there. It happens in both directions. If you're coming south on North Providence as well towards the downtown, people would park here, and so this was here, or people would park here. And again, it's by no means just a downtown issue, but certainly as we've had more and more success with our downtown businesses and more demand for space, people are getting really creative with where they park, and this is a way of helping that situation.
Can I just ask a question? So neighborhoods where the roads haven't been turned over to the HOA, are those roads,
Haven't been turned over to the town?
well, or I'm sorry, yeah. Are the ones that are turned over to the town then, would these still apply in neighborhoods then?
If they're, how this is, yes, if it's a public street, any public street, let's see, intersection of a public street.
But if the HOA hasn't turned it over, it's not a public street.
Right.
At that point.
So nothing in these wouldn't apply to anything inside of a neighborhood? That's what you're
They
saying?
would if the streets have been turned over. So my neighborhood, the majority of the streets have been turned over, so it would apply.
So if a car is like pulling into a driveway and it's crossing the sidewalk, that would, the fine that you talked about for the first one would apply? Or if,
You can go into Prescott Saturday night and probably issue 20 tickets.
that's what
yes.
I'm saying, and I'm thinking of
You
certain
absolutely could.
streets in Millbridge and things like that.
Yeah,
that-
so
okay.
we're going to have to alert people of this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe let them know how they can find out if their street is
Yeah.
a town street or still private, so that they can then go and find out for themselves. After the ban.
And we'll, a little later in the presentation, we'll talk about how there is a slight delay in and when these ordinances will actually be effective. Because there would need to be some community education before that would happen. Okay. So then the third and final one is commercial vehicles, and this one is limited to the downtown. The other two would apply townwide. This one is limited to downtown, and that's by virtue of the fact that it only applies to the downtown zoning district.
The thing I would say about the public education, most of the homeowners associations, if you alert them that it's about public safety,
Right.
they'll get the message out. They want to work with the town on that stuff. So it's just a matter of reaching them. If it's August 1st, we better start soon because of vacations and stuff like that. It'll take a while to get through the management companies with them, so.
Thank you. So this one is commercial vehicles downtown. And again, we have the new in red. Currently, it's already prohibited to park tractor trailers on public streets within the town. But this would add a commercial vehicle, and specifically in the downtown, would prohibit commercial vehicles from being left overnight in the public right-of-way. And the reason it says abutting property zone MSTC, NMX, and UN is because those are the downtown zoning districts. And I'll show you a map in a second of where that would actually apply. And then there's still exceptions if the vehicle's there, if something's under construction, or if it's just routine pickups and deliveries, drop-offs, things like that. If there's some kind of other governmental purpose, or if there's a special event. So obviously during events we wouldn't prohibit that if it was needed. But what this would, and it defines a commercial vehicle as the current definition that's in the Unified Development Ordinance. So that's where we're pulling that definition from instead of creating a new one. So it's a truck of any type that's used primarily to transport material. So its intent is to transport material or to serve some kind of commercial purpose. This is not a commercial vehicle. This is a passenger vehicle. It's a Ford F-150 that someone stuck a magnet on.
But I got a question on that.
Mhm.
So, and this happened on Church Street today, right across from the McDonald house. Guy had his trailer hitched to the back. I'm assuming he's some form of a general contractor. That trailer and the truck extended from the driveway all the way up to nearly the 15-foot mark. Would that be, with a truck like that with a trailer that's hauling goods or whatever, would that fall under this ordinance, or do they fall under a different ordinance?
We'd have to look at it case by case without seeing the truck.
It was a standard
It was
truck
just
like
like
that,
this.
but the trailer was, I didn't lay down on the ground, but it was probably 7-8 foot long.
Right. Well, that's a good question. I know that we had a situation where there was a Ford F-250 parked in the Oaks that was attached to a vehicle transport trailer. The vehicle transport trailer was 8,000 pounds, which did not exceed the 10,000 pound limit for the ordinance that applied to that. We did talk to our interim town attorney, and when you added the F-250 to it, it was considered one single vehicle. So that's we could get some clarification on. That.
This is fine, it's just,
Yeah.
maybe look and see how we can tighten that up as well.
Sure.
Because instead of storing in this, I can store in a trailer, and you just move the problem down the road a little bit.
Right. And
Or
some
to
of
the same spot.
Okay. So this is an example of something this is a commercial vehicle. It's more cut and dry. This is the downtown, these are the affected areas in the outline here. These are the downtown zoning districts. We talked about penalties, so, sorry, I misspoke earlier. It's parking within 15 feet of the intersection, which was $25 fine, and then the public sidewalk obstructions and the commercial vehicles penalties are taken from the existing penalty structure that the ordinance has. So it starts with a warning, and then the fines escalate from there.
I have a question. Do these penalties have any effect on someone's driver's license in any way?
To my
Points, do they?
Yeah, does it affect
No.
points on licenses, or it's just monetary? So someone could, if we have this capped at $100 a year, someone could just say, well, the price of being able to park wherever I want, whenever I want is $100 a year.
Well, that's a good point, but this is taken from, it's section 10.99 of the existing town code, and it provides the monetary citations as an option, but it also provides another civil action that the town could take. Basically, it's a misdemeanor, and you would go to Union County
So
Court.
there is some additional recourse if someone was just constantly doing this and $100 had already charged.
Yes, you couldn't just decide
Okay.
that that's the cost of doing business. That's a good question, though. Yeah. So it would be delayed to August 1st that we talked about community education. So that's
So
what we
just
have
take
here.
that a step further. So I park my trailer in my dually, and I get 3 tickets, and so I paid $225. And now what? You have to get a court order. What are you taking me to court on, and what's the process for that? What's the impact on the town to get?
Sure. I mean, you're violating. It's a violation of the town code of ordinances. And so what we do right now, I haven't taken it that far since I've been involved. But what you would do is you would go to down to the Union County Magistrate. You would swear a warrant that this ordinance section, that they're violating this ordinance, and then you would go serve it with the police. So I mean, that's how you could escalate it if it got to that point.
I ask because I know in our neighborhood there was the addition of towing added. It cleaned the problem up completely. It just took one towing of a vehicle after the 3rd violation, and they had to go pay the $300 to get it out of towing jail. We have not had the problem since. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there's some creative ways out there that, and I don't even know if that's legal or whatever, but not to hold this up, but in terms of enforcing it. Because the other side of that, what we found was people have a lot of discretionary money right now, and $100 is nothing to a lot of people. And unfortunately, I'm not making a value judgment. They don't have any problem throwing $100 at it and say, hey, I can park wherever I want, $100.
But as soon as it becomes a real inconvenience.
That's right, exactly.
Right.
Would towing be an option, though?
I don't know.
Well, we can tow if a vehicle is, currently we can already tow if a vehicle is considered abandoned. And the definition of abandoned if it's left on a public street for more than 7 days. So we do have an option to tow right now.
But after, say, the 3rd or 4th violation, would that then be a viable option as opposed to going down to the magistrate? I mean, is there a cost for you to have to go down to the magistrate to, file the complaint, the summons, to go, to have it served, as opposed to towing the vehicle and putting that cost on the person who's in violation?
Sure. I mean, certainly there would be a cost in terms of staff time if you wanted to keep escalating it to having to go get a warrant and all that. But how it's written right now, we're not proposing to put towing specifically as tied to this particular ordinance.
So perhaps you could come back after we get this implemented and see if we even have a problem, but as well as explore some options and come back to the board, in a few months and just say, here's where we are. We're not
Sure.
seeing anything. We haven't issued tickets, or we got 5 of these at the max already.
Right. our experience has been with code enforcement, again, I think in previous presentations, I've mentioned in 2017, I believe it was 993 cases that were resolved by the town through our process, and we had 3 or 4 citations out of all of those. And we actually had to proceed past the citation phase to the point where we actually abated or we corrected the violation ourselves, whether that was through cutting the grass, removing the junk from the property that was in question, taking action against a property. Again, it was less than 10 out of 900. So our experience so far has been that when you start putting some teeth, we've gotten compliance. And so I'm not sure how often we would get to the point where you get past 100, but that's something we don't know yet. So also with the commercial vehicles, since we're talking about kind of seeing how things go, this is pretty broad here, this definition, and we talked about like what about the trailer scenario. It's broad because it allows some discretion, because you can't. I've looked at a lot of commercial vehicle ordinances and have been responsible for enforcing a couple different ones, and try as you might, you're never going to be able to define every type of vehicle. I mean, there's always going to be something new that the ordinance can't account for. So with it being broad like this, you kind of look at it to a certain extent at case by case and say, what is the intent of this vehicle? Just wanted to get back to that.
A lot of good work here.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Next up, Park Cultural and Recreation Advisory Board Work Plan Presentation. How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Terrific.
This was kind of last minute for us, so I apologize if we're a little off here. But so my name is Justin Newton. I am the new chair of the Parks Cultural and Recreation Advisory Board. We had one of our gentlemen, Paul Meggett, had left, so I'm taking over for this now. So I'm going to try to figure this out. Okay.
Before you start, thank you for what you do and the service you provide as part of that committee.
Thank you. I
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. The purpose of the PCR is to promote, advise, and assist the Parks and Rec Department on matters related to the park and cultural, art and recreation and greenways. This includes and not limited to, and as you can see there, development of new funding, assisting and helping with the special events that go on inside the town, facilitating programs and policies regarding placement of public art, assisting the development of long-range planning and programs facilities, promotion of community awareness for parks, assist in recognizing advisory groups within the town, and coming up with future proposed community projects and arts and recreations and greenways. To that, the PCR has developed a work plan for 2018 designed to complete several park projects that have been budgeted for the 2018 fiscal year, as well as meet future development and recreational needs of the town. All right, so our objective is basically is based off of 4 things. So it's public outreach. I think it's, sorry, we'll go back. Public outreach, budget support, to be a sounding board, and to also help with the community development. We plan on doing this through the SMART objectives that the board has put in front of us, and I'm going to go through those right now. So goal number 1 was to complete the budget park facility phasing. Right now we're in the process of completing the Town Creek Park and H.C. Nesbitt Park. along with developing new trails for the 12 Mile Creek and Carolina Thread Trail. For just to go back to the objectives, the budget support or public outreach is us being on the front lines. We have a group of 7 or 8, I forget what the actual numbers are, 7 or 8, that actually we go out and we try to help with the town events. We go to the senior coffees. We try to do everything in the town to promote what we do going forward for the community. The next one would be we're also going to try to identify funding for projects. We also plan on to be the staff liaison and board commissioners, the sounding board for them. And then, again, integrating with other projects, or excuse me, other town advisory boards to be for community development. So again, right now, we're in the process of finishing up Town Creek Park and H.C. Nesbitt Park. I don't know if the guys, the last time you've been down there, but Town Creek Park, we got the pavilion going up. I think the playground is just going in, and that should be, is it done? Almost. We're almost close to being done, so hopefully we'll get that going there soon. The next one is complete the policies. Right now, we're working on the park master plan, as well as the combined art and art policy and naming policy. We hope to have that done, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 meetings that we have. We meet every third Wednesday of the month, so hopefully we'll have that done by the time we have a new board coming in September, so they don't have to worry about coming into that. And then lastly, we have to improve the advisory board collaboration. So what we've done is we've taken our members and we've held them to a standard of they need to be at a certain amount of projects throughout the year. So whether it's a senior coffee, Kaleidoscope Fest, the 4th of July, you're going to see somebody down there in our very bright green polos that say Waxhaw Cultural Parks and Recreation, handing out information and trying to help out the town where we can. And as of right now, with our group, we have a subcommittee that now is working with the Main Street Advisory Board and Historic Preservation. So this is where we're trying to leverage results. So, in conclusion, the work plan has helped. The work plan we have should help advance the town's missions, visions, and values while being SMART, which is the smart, measurable, assignable, realistic, time-based goals. Where possible, we will leverage to help maximize town resources and to help better results with the greater good of the town. Thanks.
First of all, thank you.
Sure, no problem. You guys
Questions for Justin?
No.
All right.
You did a nice job with the document.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And
Thank you very much.
so are now you the chair until September or
I'm the chair until October.
October?
Yeah, so I was the vice chair.
Yeah.
Paul was the chair. So we have Ms. Jen Jones is going to be our vice chair, and we have a great group of people. We plan on doing a lot for this town over the next few years, and hopefully, we can get more involved.
We'll get you up here one more time just so you can have the thrill of going through a presentation again before
Absolutely.
October.
I
Okay?
appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, last item. Kelly Curry's going to talk a little bit. We're going to get the ball rolling on 2018-19 Boards Commission appointment process.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So the latest and greatest edition of the orientation manual, Section 2B, speaks to the appointment process. The appointment process is intended to provide a clear overview of how applicants are moved through the selection process and ultimately appointed to serve on a voluntary capacity on a board or commission. This process was designated to ensure consistency in making necessary recommendations and appointments to volunteer boards and commissions. After that, the section goes on to include the organization advisory board in depth in that process. So since the OAB has been suspended, staff would just like to get some direction from this board of how you would like to go through the process this year. So the clerk's office has been advertising for applications. Back in March, we sent you a link to a folder where all the applications reside, as well as some other documents that are helpful in organizing, showing spreadsheets of the applicants, the current board member list and stuff. That's constantly been updated. We currently have 17 applications in that file. One expired last week and one expires today, so we have 15 applications on file. Most folks apply for 3 boards or commissions. Not all, but most. And then we have 16 vacancies coming up on our 6 boards and commissions. And we currently have 5 vacancies. 2 of those overlap with the term appointments that begin October 1st and end September 30th of 2021. So if we could just get some direction in how you would like to interview or what you would like to do, that would be great.
So complexity-wise, so we have basically 19 openings.
Yes,
We have really right now 15 applicants.
correct.
So that's a simple math problem. We got a little bit of a shortfall there. But if you look at it across the board, and this is just a suggestion I'm going to throw out there, we have some midterm vacancies, ABC Planning Board and Main Street Advisory Board. We could fill 2 of those relatively quickly. ABC, we have nobody, we got to go do some recruiting.
Yes.
Nobody has signed up for ABC, and if I'm not mistaken, not only do we have this one, we have another one coming off.
You do, and that gentleman actually is not eligible, according to our current policy, to be reappointed because he's served 2 consecutive terms.
So, okay.
But there is a provision in the statute so that that board could keep functioning in the
Correct.
state statutes. 168-62, says that if somebody's term expires, they can continue to serve until a replacement is found.
So as I looked at the pool, we have a real legitimate one statutory requirement, Board of Adjustment and Planning Board. And as we go into the period of bringing forward new ordinances, et cetera, we need to have those people placed quickly and make sure that we can fill them. Planning Board, Board of Adjustment has 2 vacancies, Planning Board 4. And so my suggestion is we take care of that statutory one and in the Historic Preservation and ABC sometime in the week of July 10th, July 16th, those 2-week periods. They drum up some activity, try to get more candidates. We get that out hopefully sometime next week, and we can start vetting who do we want to interview, et cetera, because she's going to have to turn right around and say, go to these people and say, when can you do an interview? When can you do this? And so, and then perhaps do towards the end of July, the first part of August, Main Street Advisory Board and Parks, Culture, and Recreation. We got 13 applicants for the Main Street Advisory Board. Everybody wants to be on that one. That's going to take a little bit more time to vet. Also, some of those actually listed Planning Board and Board of Adjustment, so I think if they're viable candidates, we may be flipping those. But if everybody is comfortable kind of taking, I'm just looking at the calendar, that kind of approach where we use the weeks of the 3 weeks in July, 9th, 16th, and 23rd to begin to tackle the statutory ones, and then perhaps the first week of August, the non-statutory ones. That at least we can get to Kelly, hey, here, she can send out to us, here's the link to, here's the people that could be, we can start a process where, hey, here's my top two, and we can funnel it down to, do we have some candidates we want to interview?
Divvy up the interview.
Yeah.
So you would want to go ahead and then divvy them up and not conduct those as an entire board, which would require, of course, a special.
Yeah, well, we can discuss that. It's going to be hard with all these applicants to, my hunch is, would you want to stand there and be interviewed by 5 people?
No, and I've seen jurisdictions do it that way, and it's a very uncomfortable thing, I think, for applicants, and they've shared that with me in the past, so.
Yeah. So we got to work that mechanic out, but does that seem reasonable? Right now, we got to get candidates. And so Kelly, I'll sit down with you and work the calendar with you so we can get that going. We'll put specific dates and get it out to the board this week.
We have made arrangements with communications to do another social media push this week. We've been advertising since the beginning of May on the website and TriW and the happenings, social media pushes, really just trying to get some applicants in, but, we are where we are with them, so. All right, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's all we have. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
All those in favor? In an hour.